Woo! We talked water, now we're talking fire. The top 5 counterpicks of that element that I said before. All right, let's get started. Number 5, Lucia the Fire Pudding Princess. Lucia is incredible, and I actually think that you could make an argument for having her further up on the list. Her passive says that she is immune to crowd control effects. She also increases healing efficiency on your team while reducing the efficacy of attack bar reduction skills that your opponents use. Let me just make sure that efficacy means what I think it means. Efficacy, produce the desired beneficial effect. Listen to pronounce in medicine, the ability of an intervention, for example, a drug or surgery, to produce the desired beneficial effect. So it's like effectiveness. Okay, so let's keep it. But don't put me Googling the definition of efficacy. There are so many units out there that just have incidental attack bar reduction effects or comps that are entirely centered around reducing your attack bar. And I'm not even just talking about like Oliver and the Wind Robo. There are so many monsters that do this. And Lucia just destroys their ability to do that. Lucia ultimately just wants to stay alive and take turns. So you can put her on Violent, Speed HP, and then in your artifacts, you can look for increased recovery on her skills. Number 4, Rika or Nora. Even though these two do slightly different things, I think that they can occupy the same slot. Both of these units are great options for if you're in the pick ban phase of RTA and you notice that your opponent forgot to bring some immunity. And they both let you control the game in slightly different ways, but they both feature dots. Rika's got stuns and slows, and Nora has provokes, strips, and dots. Both of these monsters really love Despair. I have seen Violent Rikas out in the wild. For Rika, usually folks like to put her on 100% resistance just so that way it's a little harder for your opponents to deal with them. And I have also seen my fair share of Revenge Noras. In fact, I am the proud owner of a Revenge Nora. And then look for increased accuracy in the substats of your artifacts. Number 3 is a 3-way tie, funny enough, between Douglas, Antares, and Laika. You'll notice that the 3 of these guys have a similar place in a pick ban phase. Namely, when you see a bunch of wind, a bunch of monsters that want to take turns, and a bunch of monsters that want to try to attack into you. Douglas was featured in our How to Rune 3 popular counterpicks in RTA video. He imposes a chance to glance on monsters that have less attack power than he does, and then he can counterattack after he cleanses himself. He is a solo champion. Antares has a 15% chance to take an additional turn, but that chance goes up over time. And then Laika has a built-in chance to counterattack, and it takes at least 5 hits to kill him. Add a little healing on skill 1 to that, and you've got a great monster. But if he got his stun back, it'd be even better. Who cares? Ruin him on Despair. Who cares, right? We can rebuild him, make him stronger.
Better than he was before.
Even though these units kind of fit within the same role, the way that you rune them does differ. For instance, Douglas really wants to be runed on high attack and vampire. Attack, crit damage, attack is a great way to go. Antares, on the other hand, you have a choice between Violent or Despair. Either way, you should probably go for attack, crit damage, attack, and I'm a big fan of Antares that have 0 speed. Like, if you're running Antares, you might as well just put all of your faith in his passive, right? You know? You just roll up into RTA and put it all on red. Like, we've talked about this before. That's why Antares is like both F tier and S tier. The dude is either the reason you won or you lost, and it's his fault. One thing to note about Antares, though, even though we're ruining him on attack, crit damage, attack, he doesn't necessarily need to have close to 100% crit rate. He just needs to have around 70. Because he increases his own crit rate through a crit rate buff when he gets a turn through his passive, it's more important that you focus on the damage that he's going to deal out once he's got the enhanced crit rate from that buff. I guess you could technically do like a Vampire Antares with like some Revenge Runes or something, but that seems like something a Psychopath would do, so, you know, it's not me. For your artifact substats, look for increased crit damage, damage reduction from water monsters, and then maybe some life drain from skill 2. Now for Laika, you could put him on Violent, or you could put him on Despair to make him kind of look like he's the Laika from 2017. For him, you might as well just go attack, crit damage, attack. Because why not? Just don't skimp on HP. Some people swear by Laikas with like 0 additional HP. The only thing I will warn you about though is that even from incidental multi-hits, he will just fall. So yeah, just be careful with that. Number 2 is Tessarion, if you can believe it. Tessarion the Fire Ifrit counters so many people. Because so many of the most popular monsters in RTA have passives, that makes Tessarion their natural predator. He is one of the most effective and accessible sources of one of the rarest debuffs in the game, Oblivion. And thanks to the most recent balance patch, if he attacks into somebody who's already got Oblivion applied, he's gonna crank that up to 3 turns. Tessarion has a lot of flexibility when it comes to how you rune him. Generally speaking though, violent is gonna be the way you wanna go. You could go speed, crit damage, attack. You could go speed, crit damage, HP. You could go speed, attack, HP. But ultimately what you need him to do is take turns and apply Oblivion and defense break. If you do that, then we're good. So maybe increased accuracy on skill 3, so that way his passive has a better chance of applying Oblivion, or increased accuracy on skill 2, so you can also more reliably land that defense break. And also because he lost a little bit of damage reduction thanks to the most recent balance patch, you could also try to reduce the amount of incoming damage from elements like fire and water. Honorable mentions, Carlos, the Fire Weapon Master. I'm sure there are some situations where you'll pick Carlos as a main damage dealer, but oftentimes he's better when you see a bunch of wind monsters or you see a Nana. Carlos loves Nana. Next, Federica, the Fire Gladiatrix. Federica's main purpose is to live with snipe comps, but there are times where you can just throw her into a random comp and just threaten to slay somebody turn 1. Plus her passive makes her kind of hard to deal with, because the first time that she would get taken down, she instead doesn't, and she becomes invincible instead. Funny, that sounds like the exact opposite of dying. And lastly, Rocky, the Fire Hell Lady. Unfortunately, there's a lot of good options in the top 5, so Rocky just narrowly misses the cut. But her ability to cut through the ability to revive is really handy when you're up against things like Nana, Triana, Vanessa. Number 1, Juno, the Fire Oracle. Whenever Juno has debuffs applied to her, she gains a speed buff and cleanses all those debuffs at the start of her turn. Plus, she heals her allies. So there are times where your opponent could think that they're doing a bunch of damage to you with dots or making headway in the game by using Shizuka's 3rd skill, and whoops, they accidentally healed you. That's weird. Add in a strip on skill 2 that can kind of make the enemy team look like they're out of TOA, and yeah, you got a number 1 best counterpick. Congratulations, Juno. You earned it. Juno is most comfortable on Despair Revenge. Juno's primary stats are going to be crit rate, HP, and speed. Kind of in that order, actually. But then what's really important for her is finding additional damage in your substats within your artifacts. That's where most of your damage is going to come from. So if you've got a Juno, I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's time to start farming the Punisher's Crypt and Steel Fortress. But hey, we got guides for those. You got vampires? You got dogs that need walking? Oh my god, I almost fell into my green screen. We got a team for you. See you guys next time.